Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode. Today I will be looking at Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, released in 1978. Killer Tomatoes is about all kinds of shit, like actually bro, this movie cuts scene to scene, and half the time you don't even know what's happening, but you soon catch on. It's mainly about the government trying to get rid of the tomatoes. And this guy named Dixon travels with this goofy fucker as they try to find a cure or some, but enough talking, let's get to those kills. The movie begins in present day, and this lady washes the dishes. She sees a tomato in her sink, and it kills her off screen. Then it cuts to people taking pictures of this. The police are there too, and this guy realizes it's tomato juice.
Tomato juice.
Then randomly, this guy starts dying from the juice. It cuts to the police going over to this helicopter, and it ends up crashing, killing the pilot, and this guy says a tomato flew into it, then asks this guy about the tomatoes while they talk. More little tomatoes start rolling up. Then he shows him a picture of Dixon, and they notice someone who needs to keep an eye on the investigation. Then he comes up to them, and they get interrupted by a plane coming. Then all these guys, including Dixon, go to have a meeting in this small ass room, and the secretary comes in a little late. Then this doctor talks about the tomatoes. He gives it over to this guy to talk, bro,
which we are confident will result in the ultimate destruction of the enemy.
What the fuck is that shit? Then Mr. Wilde gives his input on this, but this fucker just shits all over him.
This is man versus vegetable.
Technically, sir, tomatoes are fags.
Because Mr. Wilde thinks they shouldn't use guns or some. Then they wrap up the meeting, and this guy randomly starts freaking out. They all go over to this guy, he asks him to run, and he does this shit, bro. Then Mr. Wilde shows Dixon his team. It randomly cuts to these people. They jump in the water, and the tomatoes just come out of nowhere. They end up killing them. Bro, it cuts to Jim answering some questions. He decides to answer this guy's question. His question gets Jim weirded out for no reason and tries to play it off. Then it cuts to the quarter sum. They talk about the tomato mess and all read these papers. Then this guy sets up him a deal with a chick named Lois for an undercover job. Then it cuts to another bunch of random people, and this biker ends up biting the dust. And this chick sees this. These guys hear about it, so they go to drive over there. Then Lois gets to the place, and this motherfucker weird as hell.
Thank you, sir.
Don't mind.
Thank you, sir.
A nice ass.
Thanks.
Then hires her. It turns out these guys got pretty fucked up by some tomatoes and crash over here. They start freaking the fuck out and try calling for backup. They hear something from over, and this is the last time we see them. So they're going on the count. It cuts to Jim talking to the president. Mr. President tells him to fly to New York immediately. The most random fucking cutaway shot shows 2 people dead. Then it cuts to Dixon, and Lois goes to talk to him, but Dixon just walks away and drives away. He drives to the middle of nowhere and drops off the scooper guy. While they wait for the main guy, I guess. My bro looks offensive. Then Big Bro crashes on the top and says what's up. His name's Finletter.
I'm Mason Dixon, and this is...
God! It's Adolf Hitler!
Dixon fucking throws his ass on the ground. This guy is just disguise. Then Dixon tells him to disguise as a tomato. It cuts to Jim going to meet with this guy named Ted. He sits there and listens to him while a fucking sponsor or something goes over the screen. Ted gets a little pissed, and yet again, another random ass scene. He starts singing a song. After that, he tells him to stop by in the morning. Then they go to watch a movie. Bro gets offended. Back to Dixon. He tells Finletter that they're gonna stay in a hotel. They walk inside, and Lois is there watching. Dixon gets the room key. Then Lois goes up to the desk and somehow gets their exact key. Dixon gets ready for bed. Then Lois decides to go to their room. She steps inside, but Finletter immediately wakes up, so she gets scared and walks out. Meanwhile, that one guy actually dressed up like a tomato. It cuts to Dixon waking up to an important phone call. So he hurries up and gets ready, but stops to listen to the radio. It's useless though. It cuts to this random kid. His dog tweaks out, and I really can tell if this person died. It cuts to all these military men. They go to see this doctor, and he captured a killer tomato.
Isn't what we thought. It's a cherry tomato.
Then we see this random lady getting chased by Tomato, and we see this other lady eating some weird cereal until she's interrupted by some tomatoes trying to attack. Some biggest ones too. Finletter goes over there and sees the lady dead. Then just leaves the scene. It cuts back to Ted, and Jim actually stopped back by. He comes off kinda pissed, but really he's just chilling. Then Ted shows him his plans. He talks about some tomato program he wants to start, but before Jim leaves, they watch another offensive ass movie. It cuts to Dixon driving, and a bunch of random clips.
Tomato.
Dixon drives, through this shortcut, but gets stopped by a killer tomato. There's even one behind him. He kinda freaks out until they just leave all of a sudden. It cuts back to the court. Some of these fuckers are pasted out. Then all these guys have another meeting, but Jim leaves a little early than they had out there. Whatever, after that, Dixon dips. It cuts to Finletter making a phone call, and Lois does the same. She calls the boss and starts giving him details on Finletter. Meanwhile, he's talking to Dixon. The boss tells her to chill and get some rest, then makes a poor impression while talking to Finletter. It cuts to this man randomly killing people walking around Dixon, and somehow he doesn't notice. It cuts Lois sneaking in the room because Finletter's so dumb he doesn't know she's in there. She does the most random shit ever and lays down just to get back up and goes to ask him something. But he just freaks out and starts chasing her around because he thinks she's a spy. Dixon walks up and sees her run out of that bitch. He goes in there and sees Finletter all tired out. It cuts back to that one guy and he sits there with tomatoes. They start talking about what body part they want to eat, and bro's just happy to be there. Dixon walks up on the military base and goes to talk to them. After that, he goes to Finletter and they start getting shot at, so Finletter runs after the guy. They go for a long ass run until the shooter pulls his gun, but when a train passes by, he just runs away. Bro's left clueless. It cuts to Dixon talking to the president on the phone, and he's still writing bro. The president says he's gonna bomb New York. It cuts back to the bro and he asks for ketchup.
Hey, will somebody please pass the ketchup?
Meanwhile, these guys wait for the war to break out. The soldiers get ready, but first they sing and dance to some dumbass song. They drive the tank and start going for an all-out killing spree. This guy sadly ends up biting the dust by a tomato. We also see someone dead in the back. Then they go back to murking those fucking tomatoes. It cuts to the next day, where this guy interviews a victim.
And your husband is missing.
Yes,
Do you think
is.
he's dead?
Well,
Will you miss him? Will you marry again?
Dixon decides to go for a walk, where he notices some tomatoes juice on the ground, also sees a whole trail, so he follows it, and ends up finding one of them. The tomato starts chasing. He runs his ass away, then goes into this building, and runs into this random room. He realizes they die from a song, then sees that shooter robbing his car, so he pushes out Finletter and chases him. With Finletter getting dragged the whole way, they drive for a longest time, bro, and both of their cars start giving out. Dixon finally decides to get out and hold him at gunpoint until Finletter's dumbass accidentally hits him. He waits up to the one and only Jimbo. Turns out he's the evil fucker. Jim starts yapping, so Dixon tries to get his gun. But then he hands him a tomato, not a living one. Then Jim gets ready to shoot his ass. He gets interrupted by the delivery man, but just shoots him up, bro. Then Finletter randomly busts in and fucking stabs and kills Jimbo, and Dixon makes sure to bring that one song. He tells Finletter to get a bunch of people, then runs his ass to the stadium, and somehow Finletter got all these people. They all go to the stadium, and the killer tomatoes show up. Dixon tells them to cover their ears, and they play the song. It makes them just completely fucking leave. Then they randomly run after them. Dixon hears Lois getting attacked by a tomato with headphones, but Dixon shows it the fucking song, and it somehow kills it. After that, Dixon and Lois have a final talk. The movie ends with them walking off. I counted 21 deaths in this movie, 13 guys, 5 girls, and 3 unknown. I will give Golden Peter for coolest kill to probably the girls in the water, and Drunk Peter for weakest kill to the government men.
On the next kill count.
MuteRUFF is addicted to countdown.